Well, how's everybody doing today? You guys doing all right? Awesome. Glad to have you guys here. To those of you joining at 48th Street, we're so glad that you guys are here with us. To those of you in Macomb, to those of you in Kirksville, 929, want to welcome you as well. At all of our locations, would you put your hands together for our Hannibal campus celebrating their 4-year anniversary? We're extremely excited about that. It has been amazing to see the growth that's happened at that campus over the last 4 years, and no doubt God has more things in store for you guys. Also want to give a shout out to Pittsfield and that campus. We want to welcome you. I had the opportunity to hang out in Pittsfield a couple Wednesdays ago at their Men's Crossfire event, which was great, and I'm glad you guys are part of us. To those of you in Lima, I want to welcome you. To those of you in Keokuk, I want to welcome you. And also we have another shout out we need to give. I believe that Mount Sterling is also celebrating an anniversary, their 2-year anniversary. Would you give them a big shout out? A lot of anniversaries happening around at our crossing locations, but I also want to welcome those of you who are watching online right now. Maybe you were at the crossing at one point in time and you've just kind of taken it with you wherever you're at. Maybe you're traveling this weekend, or maybe you have never been to one of our brick and mortar facilities, but you've heard about us and you're tuning in, and I want to welcome you guys as well. We're so glad that we get to be in relationship with you. The other thing I want to do is I want to welcome anybody who is a first-time guest at all of our locations. We're so glad you showed up. Our hope is that you'll find what we found, and that's an intimate, personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Hopefully, I'm not the first person to say this, but we are so unbelievably glad we're here, and we hope that you'll come back. Our senior pastor, Jerry Harris, is gone this weekend, so I get the opportunity to preach. So all of our first-time guests, make sure you come back next week because you'll be really blessed when you get to hear from him. Before I jump into the sermon, what I have in my possession right here are 2 highly coveted night of worship tickets for our one concert. And we've been doing this for a couple of months now. This is one of the ways that as a church, we are blessing our family members who are a part of our online audience, because this is where we're able to produce the worship that they're able to experience at their computer screen or at their TV in their home. And if you want to be a part of that, you need to make this a priority at all of our locations. I believe there are tickets available. There might not be any left now because it's second service, one of the values of showing up for Saturday night or first service. But listen, you need to make it a priority to get to one of these, get a hold of one of these tickets, and then be here. This next one coming up is May 15th, and it starts at 7 p.m. And I'm just going to tell you what Jennifer and I have been doing. We haven't missed a single one. We come down, we bring some people that we like from Macomb down with us. We eat some steak and some rolls, so that way I'm fully carbo loaded and I can worship with my whole heart because I don't have to worry about running out of energy. Any great athlete needs to make sure he has good nutrition, and I choose the red meat route. So make sure you get a hold of one of these and that you're a part of it. We'd love to pack this place here at 48th Street that night, and I promise if you come, you will not regret it. Well, we're in a sermon series called Keep the Change, and we've been looking at what it means for Jesus to bring about change in our lives, and then how do we keep it? How do we hold on to it? You see, it's one thing to experience change on a Saturday night or a Sunday morning, but it's a whole nother thing to try and keep it on the Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays of life. It's hard because change it's slippery. I wonder how many of you are still living out your New Year's resolution. Raise the hands. A couple of you, yeah, okay. I bet there were more hands that were raised the first Sunday in June when we asked that question. This is a week one, but I was writing an e-news article for our church in December, and I was like, I wonder what it would look like if I did 10 push-ups a day for the entire year. And I started doing it, and this is gonna be embarrassing, but I started spending a lot of time going, man, woo, okay. I was impressed. I'm doing these 10 push-ups. I'm getting my little kids involved, and they're crawling on my back. I'm doing push-ups. I'm only doing 10. It's not like I'm, changing the world, but I was excited about it. Then as I was getting ready to write this sermon, I was like, I haven't done push-ups in I don't know how long. I just all of a sudden just quit. I have, however, been killing some bowls of chocolate chip ice cream. And If that was my goal for the year, I would be doing great, okay? But change is slippery. You've all tried to make changes in your life, haven't you? And the next thing you know, you find out it's gone. You had the best of intentions. You had a good idea. You knew it was for the best, and it's gone. The good news is that God is not just the author of change. He's the sustainer of it. And if we go to him and we allow him to make the changes, he will also allow us to keep it. Jesus says this in John chapter 10, verse 10. He kind of gives us an inside peek as to what he came for, what he's trying to accomplish. And this is what it says. I have come that they may have life and have it, say it with me now at all of our locations, full. If you have an NIV, or if you have something other than an NIV, it says abundantly, to the top, filled up, overflowing. That's the kind of life he designs or desires for you and me to have. But I wonder if you see the same people that I see and go, it doesn't look like a lot of people who love Jesus are living the abundant life. I look around and I see people and I go, there's no way that's what the abundant life looks like. I look in the mirror and I go, there's no way this is what the abundant life looks like. I feel like I'm always coming in short, like I'm never living the life I was called to live. I feel like there are barriers that I have to break through. I feel like there's obstacles that I have to overcome. And I'm willing to wager at all of our locations that probably one of the biggest barriers and one of the biggest obstacles to living the abundant life is our past. This week I was talking to a lady and she said, what are you preaching on? And I said, past, and she just immediately started tearing up. Because our past have played a big part on how we feel about ourselves. It's a big part of who we are. It's some of the things we've done are just hard to deal with. And so when we start talking about past, it gets tough quick. It gets personal quick. Well, there are three things you got to know about your past. First of all, everybody has one. Every single person in your row, look to your right and look to your left. All the people listening to my voice, we all have a past. We all have life in the rearview mirror. And that's how you have a story. That's how you have memories, is that you've lived. If you are here and you don't have any part of past, you wouldn't be alive. So part of being alive is having a past. And there are good things in your past. We always go to the negative, but there are unbelievably wonderful things that have happened in our past. For instance, for me, I started a relationship with Jesus Christ in my past. And that decision has made all the difference. I was able to come work at this church. That was a decision that I made in my past. And I'm so unbelievably grateful that they let me stay around here, because this has been one of the most treasured things I've ever done, is be part of the Crossing. And this network of churches trying to do awesome things for Jesus. That's a part of my past. I convinced a girl to marry me in my past. Yes, couldn't be happier about that decision. I've got kids that came out of my past, things that have happened behind me, and I'm so thankful for my kids. I have deep and meaningful relationships full of memories and laughs that are all a part of my past. I have gone on mission trips and I've done ministry that's all part of my past. There are very wonderful things in my past, and there are wonderful things in your past. But it's the third thing about our past that we struggle with, and that there are some dark things in our past, some unmentionables, some dark chapters. There are things that have happened in our past to us, or things that we have done in our past that have defined us. They are things in our past that we don't even want me to preach any more of this sermon, because you're just feeling the weight of it. And your past, it lives in these dark places, and it holds us there. It keeps us there. And so you have flashbacks to when you were at your worst, and you start thinking, there's no way I could ever be who God wanted me to be because of all the things that I've done. No wonder one of the biggest obstacles to us living the abundant life has been our past. And what we've tried to do is we've tried to deal with it in at least three ways. I'm sure there's more, but there are three ways that I think we kind of deal with our past. one of the things we try to do is we try to rest on it, prop ourselves up by it. You know, you look back over the last part of your life, and when you see the good things, this is harder for us, because when we see the good things, it's really easy for us to rest on our past. Well, look at all the good things I used to do. Oh, I used to be in a small group. I used to be serving in ministry. I used to tithe. I remember when I went on that mission trip, and we can look back at all the things we used to do and get kind of proud. And we can also get kind of lazy. You looking back at all, and like, I've done enough. Look at all the things I did. But what you need to realize is God's not interested in what you've done. He's interested in what you're going to do. He's wanting you to dust some of the things that you've done for him off and get something new to happen in your life. If your last time that you stepped out of your comfort zone and you did something for Jesus Christ is a year old, that ain't right. He's wanting to do something in you all the time. And when you look back and go, oh yeah, look at how awesome I used to, that's not cool. Let me put it in the context of your marriage. Some of you, your marriage right now, it's fizzling instead of sizzling. And there were some things you used to do that kept that sizzle going. Guys, you used to like buy her things. You used to go watch movies that dealt with feelings. You would talk to her at dinner instead of watching the game. And you wonder why the relationship's not going the way you want it to go. It's because you're not doing the things that you used to do. You're resting on well, I married her, didn't I? I told her I loved her when I married her, and I'll tell her when I change my mind. You're resting on what you did in the past, and what she's going is, I want someone to act like they love me today. It's like being a grown man and wearing your high school letter jacket to work. Like, you pull it out, put it on. Oh yeah, I was fast in high school. You would lose all your friends that day. If I was your friend, I would make fun of you relentlessly. I wouldn't even work that day. Can you imagine do it tomorrow if you want to lose all your friends. Just pull out your old letter jacket, walk into work. Oh yeah, see that pen right there? Yeah, I was in the 4x8, man. You should have seen how fast. Nobody cares. Nobody. Your mom probably doesn't even care anymore about how fast you were in high school. And yet you want to, no, that ain't right. What are you doing now? What are you doing today? What are you allowing God to work in you? We rest on it. The other thing we do is we downplay it. We love to downplay our past because we don't feel so bad about what we've done if we can convince ourselves that what we've done isn't all that bad. The problem when you downplay your sin is you also downplay Jesus. You see, every single sin that you did, whether you think it's a big deal or not a big deal, required Jesus to come and die on the cross for it. So if you have a low view of sin, you're going to end up having a low view of Jesus. In fact, I would say that they're equal. Whatever your view of sin will become your view of Jesus. They're proportional. If you have a high view of sin, you're like, man, sin is horrible. It's awful. I can't stand it. Then your view of Jesus will be, he's wonderful. His grace is amazing. I can't believe that he loves me. Because when you have a high view of your sin, you will have a high view of Jesus. But if you think your sin was no big deal, then Jesus will be no big deal to you. If you don't think your sin was that bad, his grace isn't that amazing. If you think your sin isn't that horrible, then his mercy is not that powerful. Whatever your view of sin will become your view of Jesus. And some of us, we've been downplaying it. And then we wonder why our relationship with God isn't continually growing. It's because we've never fully realized how great he is, because we've been spending all of our time trying to convince ourselves that our sin's not that big of a deal. The third thing we do is we hide it. And all of us fall into this category. Last week, Jerry in his sermon was talking about how we were not designed for isolation, but when we hide our past, that's exactly what it does. We start putting up these barriers. We start doing everything in our power to get into a place where nobody knows. Nobody has to know. We're never found out. We're never discovered. Nobody can see all the horrible things I've done, and we just wall ourselves in certain areas of our life. And eventually, when you start trying to hide your sin, eventually you become a prisoner of it. You become shackled by it, controlled by it. You see, Satan operates in darkness, but Jesus operates in the light. And when we try to hide our past, what we're doing is we're taking our past into the darkness where Satan is free to operate. But when we say, I'm not going to hide it anymore, and I'm going to expose it to Jesus, I'm going to give it to Jesus, what he does is he brings light into the situation. And then when there's light, Satan can't occupy the same space that Jesus does, so Satan's got to go. And what happens is when we hide ourselves off, we're actually creating space for Satan to operate in our world. That's what happens when you hide it. Some of you, when you think about your past, there's unbelievable remorse over some of the decisions that you've done. No wonder we try to hide it. But you know the toughest sin for me to deal with is the sins that I've committed since I've known Jesus. I mean, the sin that I did before I met Jesus, I'm able to go, man, I was such an idiot. I didn't know better. But the sins that I've done since I've known him, how could a guy love Jesus and do that? How could a guy love Jesus and have that low of opinion of sin? Just think it's no big deal. That to me is the toughest sin to deal with. The sin that I did post me experiencing what Jesus did on the cross. Ultimately, there's one thing that Jesus wants you to do with your sin, and he wants me to do with my sin. There's one thing he wants you to do with your past, and one thing he wants me to do with my past. And what he wants is he wants you and me to give it to him. To give it all to him. Not some of it, not little bits of it, not parcels of it. He wants us to give him the whole thing. He wants all of our past, all of our story to be put in his hands. And once you put everything that you've ever done in his hands, then you will finally experience how powerful his love, grace, mercy, patience really are, because you'll experience it, because you'll have turned it all over to him, and he will still say, yes, I love you. Yes, I forgive you. Yes, I'm going to redeem you. But you won't ever feel all of that when you're holding something back. And once you give him your past, there's a transaction that takes place. And what he does is he takes ownership of your past. He says, that's mine now. I bought it. I paid for it. What you used to be is now purchased in me. It's mine. And then what he will do is he will allow you to reference your past without focusing on it. He'll say, you can check in the rearview mirror. You can see what you used to do, but you can't stay there. It's like when all of you leave at all of our different locations today, when you get in your car, if you were to try to drive all the way home only using the rearview mirror, you would say some words that Jesus would have to die for if you decide to make that move, right? It would just be bad news at all of our locations. But you can reference your rearview mirror without trying to stare at it the whole time. And when you reference your rearview mirror, here's what you're going to go. Oh man, look at that horrible thing I did. Man, I can't believe that God forgave me for that. You're going to look in your rearview mirror. Oh my goodness, that was a horrible sin. Oh my goodness, that breaks my heart. Man, God really is good. You're going to reference it and you're going to see some stuff that you used to do that was pretty awesome. You're going to go, man, I remember when I was tithing and involved in a ministry and serving. I remember that. What happened to me? Paul writes this in Galatians chapter 5, verse 7. You were running a good race. Who cut in on you? You were doing so great. You were making some strides for Christ. Look in your rearview mirror, Clayton. Look at all the things you used to do for Jesus Christ. What happened? Why'd you quit running? Why'd you quit striving? Why'd you keep pushing yourself? And you see your old self totally following after Jesus Christ, and you're like, hey, I need to get myself back in gear. I need to get myself back in line. I need to make some adjustments. He'll allow you to look in the rearview mirror because it increases your faith. You look in the rearview mirror and you see a similar situation. Maybe you're getting ready to make a decision in your family and you're like, man, this is a little scary decision. I don't know what we're going to do here. And he says, well, look in your rearview mirror. Remember when you were in a similar situation and I said, trust me? And you did, and look at how it worked out. And you're going to have the ability to go forward because you looked behind real quick and said, man, God was faithful in that. Maybe you're fighting with your spouse and God says, hey, Clayton, check the rearview mirror. Remember when you said that thing that wasn't Christ-like and how that worked out, Couch King? Did you remember that? And you're like, oh, yeah, I don't want to say that to her, do I, Jesus? No, Clayton. No, you don't want to say that to my daughter. You want to say something like, I'm sorry. All right, good call, Jesus. Sweetheart, I'm sorry. Oh, that worked out well. You might be going, man, instead of me saying stupid stuff, look in the rearview mirror. What did God call me to last time? How many pitfalls would we avoid if we looked in the rearview mirror and looked at all the times when we followed Jesus and went, look at the outcome, looked in our rearview mirror and looked at all the times we didn't follow Jesus and looked at the outcome? He's going to allow you to look at it, reference it, but not focus on it. The other thing that he's going to do once he has control of your past is he is going to make you new. I used this verse last time I was here. It is becoming my favorite verse. I don't know if I'm a tattoo guy, but if I ever become a tattoo guy, this verse is in the running. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, at all of our locations, say this with me, they are a new creation. The old is gone and say it with me, new has come. That when you come into a relationship with Jesus Christ, he makes you new. He restores you. He puts you together. You become a new creation in him. But there's a problem. And we find that problem in Matthew chapter 9. Starting with verse 16. It says, no one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch will pull away from the garment, making the tear worse. Neither do men pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins will burst. The wine will run out and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins and both are preserved. The tension you feel sometimes in your relationship with Christ is he started a new work in you, but you're holding on to your old self. And you're like, why is this stretching and ripping occurring? It's because you haven't given everything over to him. You've held on to certain parts of who you are, and he's brought about the newness, and that cloth is starting to tear away. You're going, man, I don't like this tension. I don't like this frustration. That's because Jesus is saying, hey, you weren't supposed to have that there in the first place. You see, Jesus said, he who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it. So once you said, I want to start a relationship with you, he began making you new. But when you hold on to the old you, there's going to be tension, a stretching. All you have to do to get rid of that tension is say, God, here is all of it. And if you think you can live your new life in your old self, you're mistaken. You see, he has to make you new because your old mind can't handle your new thoughts. He has to make you new because your old eyes can't handle your new perspective. Your old ears can't handle his new word. Your old back can't handle his new burden. You see, your old soul can't handle his new spirit. He has to make you new. And when he comes into your relationship with you and you give him all of your past, you give him the exact opportunity that he's been waiting for to make you new so you can live the life that you were created to live. Why, Crossing Church, are we holding on to stuff? When all of this awaits us, why would we hold on? Then here's what Jesus wants us to do, is he wants us to share our story. And this is where most of us are like, man, good sermon, Clayton. Check you next week. Because we love everything that Jesus is doing so far, but to talk about what he's done, we're like, I'm out. Not cool, Jesus. I don't want to hang out with you anymore. Why is that? Why is it that we want Jesus to do so much in our life, but we don't want to share it with other people? I don't know how many times I've heard people say, well, if I came to church, place would burn down. No, it wouldn't. It didn't burn down when I showed up. People are going, well, God could never forgive me of this. And the only reason they think that is because they haven't met somebody who's been forgiven of the exact same thing that they're talking about. And the reason they don't know is because nobody's told them. Yeah, he saved me too. Oh yeah, but I mean, you used to just do this. And you've just kind of told like your surface level sins. And they're like, oh, so Jesus is like for like pretty good people. What he doesn't know is that he's for like horrible people, like me. He's for everybody. In fact, his desire was always for us to share the story. In Mark chapter 5, there's a story of a man called the demoniac. Dude is messed up. He's got nothing going for him. The Bible records that he's running around naked in the cemetery. They have tried to tie him down with chains, and he's so strong, he breaks them. They've shackled his ankles, and he tore them off. And he runs around at night screaming and cutting himself with stones. Jesus shows up on the scene and says, demons, be gone. They leave. The guy's all of a sudden in his right mind. Verse 18, as Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, go home to your family and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how much he has had mercy on you. So the man went away and began to tell him, the Decapolis, how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. All throughout Scripture, Jesus is always saying, after he heals somebody, don't talk about it. Keep it to yourself. But he comes in contact with the demon-possessed man, and he says, I want you to go back to the Decapolis, the 10 cities, and I want you to make it known who blessed you. I want you to make it known who set you free. Funny thing is, a couple chapters later, Jesus shows up in the same place, and thousands of people show up to see what Jesus is going to do. I wonder how all those people heard about that Jesus was coming and what Jesus could do. It was one man who took his whole story and said, I'm going to tell people about it. But he didn't just do it there. He also did it in John chapter 4. He's meeting with a woman at the well. She's kind of a girl with a past, a messed up past. It's a past that doesn't make anybody want to smile. It's a past that she's ashamed of. She tries to downplay it, but Jesus says, that ain't right. You've had 5 husbands, and the one you're with now is not your husband. She gets done having that conversation with Jesus. She goes back into her hometown, and this is what she says. Come see the man who told me everything I've ever done. Well, she was already the talk of the town well before Jesus showed up, but they were always wondering what the rest of the story was. She shows up and she says, come meet the man who told me everything I've ever done. And all the people start coming out. It's where Jesus looks out and he says, look at the harvest that is white, or look at the field that is white for the harvest. Now check this out. Verse 39, I want to read this one slowly. Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him. That word at all of our locations, everybody say it with me. Because of the woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did. So when the Samaritans came to him, they urged him to stay with them, and he stayed 2 days. And because of his words, many more became believers. They said to the woman, we no longer believe just because of what you said. Now we have heard for ourselves, and we know that this man really is the Savior of the world. What would happen if we were to just follow the Mark 5 example and the John 4 example? Dudes, you do the Mark 5. Girls, do the John 4. And say, I'm going to share my story, my whole story. And I wonder if there'd be a paragraph at the end of your obituary that says something like this. And many people believed because of what she said. And many people believed because of what he did. And what they did was they just shared what God had done in their life. Because when God takes ownership of your past, you don't have to own it anymore. It's his. Let me just tell you what he did in my life. Let me tell you how he saved my life. The most important messages that are going to be preached at all of our locations in the month of May are not going to come from Jerry Harris, and they're not going to come from me. The best sermons that will be preached is when you sit across the table from somebody you love and you say, this is what God has done in my life. And you don't hold anything back. You give them the whole deal. You give them the full combo. You say, listen, I'm going to go layer by layer until you pass out and let you know just how bad I've been. But I'm going to tell you how bad I've been because I want you to know how good he is. And we have to get to that point where we go, why would you hold that back? People are wondering, will God love them? Would God care for them? And you're the answer. You are the answer. The answer is yes, because he did it in my life. And I have no doubt that he'll do it in yours. What if we spent as much time sharing our story as we've done trying to hide it and cover it up? What if we spent as much energy telling other people about what God's done in our life as we have trying to rest on it and downplay it? You see, God's purpose is for us to experience him fully. That's his goal. He wants every single one of us to experience him. And when we give him our past, we get to experience his love and redemption. When we reference our past, we get to experience his faithfulness. But it is only when we share our past that we give other people hope that he can do the same in them. We're moving to a time of decision.